Hello everyone, just a quick word from your friendly editor/husband. For all of you who listen to So I'm Watching This Show and own an Android device, do me a favor. Go to the Google Play Store and download the Podcast Republic app. It's a fantastic app that allows you to get all of your favorite podcasts directly on your Android devices. I use the app and love it. I can search for the podcasts I want to listen to, select them as favorites, and have them all just a click away. Make sure you set So I'm Watching the Show as a favorite so you don't miss any new episodes. Again, the app is Podcast Republic, available on your Android device. Thanks!
I still have a little bit of Lexus stuck in my head.
Nice.
I didn't know there was a studio version. I thought she only sang that, 30-second clip from the show, because I've seen that scene.
Yeah.
But there's 3 more verses and a breakdown. Have you not listened to the whole thing?
No, I knew it existed, but I've never listened to it because it's truly awful.
There's more verses, and at one point, because it goes to a Britney Spears, work bitch, hold your hands high, fingers to the sky. It goes to, this climax, and then at the end she goes, ooh, David, la, 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 la. It's, I think my favorite line is I'm a little bit tipsy when I drive my car, and I'm a little bit single even when I'm not.
Yeah.
But there's something about the wording of I'm a cute, huge yacht. Because it's contradictory.
Yeah.
And furthermore, even if you were to do that, it would be a huge cute. I don't know. It's good. It's truly special.
Let's do it. I'm a Lamborghini. I'm a Hollywood star. I'm a little bit tipsy when I drive my car. I'm expensive sushi. I'm a cute, huge yacht. I'm a little bit single, even when I'm not. I'm a little bit. I'm a little bit. I'm a little bit. I'm a little bit of la 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 la. A little bit of Lexus. La 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 la. A little bit of Lexus. La 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 la. A little bit of Lexus. Hide your diamonds, hide your exes. I'm a little bit of Lexus.
Hello, everybody. I am Will.
And I'm Kristin.
And this is So I'm Watching the Show. On today's episode, we're going to have a little conversation about the new Disney Pixar film Onward. Into the onward. Into the onward. Into the onward.
All right.
You knew it was coming.
I really knew very little about it before we went. I remember the first teaser felt a lot more whimsical than the final product ended up being.
They did a first look, I want to say 2 D23s ago or something.
Something like that, yeah.
And I remember kind of being oh. And we've talked a little bit. I have a reputation for not liking Pixar movies, which is not true. I like a lot of them. I think that they aren't especially the catnip to me they are to certain people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I put my finger on it a little bit with this one, is I think that they very rarely have a glamour factor.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. This one very especially didn't have a glamour factor, though.
Yeah, up until this point, what did I have? Bo Peep and Mirage, maybe?
Well, you like Finding Nemo.
Yeah, but there's... And that's a slightly different one. Finding Nemo is my favorite, but yeah, I think it's I'm more inclined to go for the high fantasy romance, Rapunzel, Frozen, Moana,
Sure.
Princess and the Frog, that's more what I'm looking for from my children's animation, and less barnyard animals. And so I think that might factor into my slight ambivalence, and I'm being serious. I'm always yeah, sure, fine, whatever. But some people, it's well, you and Will can put on a Pixar movie marathon and let it run on repeat for a month.
Yeah, I mean, I generally love all of them. There are some that I think are not as good, but I could watch Inside Out and Up and
Inside Out
Ratatouille,
excellent. Inside Out is one of the ones and that it's very mature, and so where it doesn't quite have the glamour factor, it's very emotionally mature. And I mean, a lot of them are also emotionally mature, but back to Onward, I remember being very intrigued by this like fantasy world they were building. And then the next thing I knew, it was weirdly like suburban. And I was kind of like, oh, I don't know how. A lot of it ends up being clever and it ends up being the movie. Like it ends up being what the movie is about. But there was just something about the advertising where they were like, remember when mermaids look like this? Well, now they look like this. And I was like, oh. Okay.
Yeah. It's like, that's not what I wanted from my mermaid.
Really. And then it feels like our third look, because I only really saw one trailer for this. And that was a movie about two boys and half of their father. And so I was like, I don't know what the fuck is happening with this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I was so vexed. Like, so we were going to cover it and I was fine. I was like, I'm sure it'll be good. We'll see. And so we went to go see this movie. And right out of the gate, I'll go ahead and say that I liked it. It was a good movie. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, it's definitely not the top of my list for Pixar movies, and I think this one, in a way that others are not, was more geared at children, like actual small children.
Oh, I kind of felt the opposite, but...
No, it was like very, because Will and I were talking about it in the car on the way home, this one was very, like, a lot simpler. Like, it dealt with a lot of themes that they've dealt with better before.
Okay.
Yeah. Like death specifically.
I guess I feel, well, I do feel the opposite. I feel like it's more for an older crowd who have experienced this level of like, pathos isn't the word, but like catharsis or so. I don't know. Being completely honest, it took a minute for it to start working for me. The first 30 minutes of it was doing very little for me.
Okay.
And so there were like two places where the movie elevated for me. And the first was when they get to the Manticore's Tavern.
Yeah.
And the second is Guinevere's Valkyrie ride.
Okay.
From that moment on, I was actually just loving it. But this was such a vast world that they built with such an interesting mythos that I sort of wish the movie was about that. Like, I wish the movie was about how this community of people was grappling with how they lost their roots. Like, they lost their magic. Okay. And, like, wanting to get it back.
I can see that.
So in a weird way, for me, it kind of felt like a first movie and its sequel.
Yeah, so that's the thing is, like, Pixar very rarely makes sequels. Like, only 2 franchises have a sequel, and it's Cars and Toy Story.
And there's so many. Finding Dory and Monsters University and...
All right, never mind. Fuck me.
Toy
I knew as soon as I said it, I was like, I'm gonna be 100% wrong. This didn't feel like it was setting up a franchise, though.
Which is unfortunate, because this is the world that I would like to come back to.
Oh, exactly.
So it's like, I think that they were doing too many things, because by the time that I accepted that this movie was about 2 brothers, I was kind of like, oh, you kept insisting other things were at play that I thought was going to pay off in a way more so.
100%. Because I was feeling the same way, where it was like every time they had a nice moment, I was like, this is really weird that the dad is like a part of this. Mm-hmm. Like that the dad's legs are still a part of this. And then it was like by the time, spoilers for this movie, by the time that it got to the end and Tom, what's his name? Holland's character, Ian, was like, I didn't need a dad because I had you, my big brother. I was like, what about your fucking dad though? His legs are still right there. Like, it was just very, we've been through this whole thing for the dad, and then all of a sudden he's like, ah.
The leg thing was so weird.
So weird.
I don't think it's just me, but there's just something about, like, bonding with the lower half of a person that I'm like, I don't know how you do that without it going to a weird sex place.
Sure. I mean...
And that was kind of the only... Because half of this movie is them playing footsie with their dad. And so I was like, this is so strange in a way that I'm trying to be like, Will, why are you doing this? And I was kind of like, the movie is making me do it. I'm not doing it. Like...
Okay, I didn't go there as hard as you did, but I did a couple of times. I clocked it. I was like, they're playing footsie with their dad. That's a little weird.
And also, I mean, this isn't weird. I don't really want it another way, but based on the glimpses we see, their dad was so hot.
Yeah,
So I kept waiting for the hot dad to come back, and as you already said, spoiler alert, it's like he kind of does, but it by that point, that's not our journey as the audience watching, the movie. So it's like we kind of see it, but it was so strange. And because there was a weird, you very like aptly were like, this is Weekend at Bernie's. And that's some of the stuff that worked the most, like the fucking Pixies.
Yeah, it's never not funny to like drag around a wobbly man, like
the scene with the Pixies in the gas station when they were like, you got a problem? And the way that the father shifts his legs causes the like hoodie he's wearing to slouch over. And it looks like this surly man being like, yeah, I got a problem.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
There's a couple of times where he's like antagonizing them and he's not meaning to. Like that sort of stuff was so funny and so weird. Because like, especially like I said, in the middle where it was kind of not working for me, there was a part of me that I was slightly doing the Alita thing where I was like, this is so weird. Why am I not loving this? And I eventually did get to that place, but it's like, I feel like
this was a way more competent film than Alita Battle Angel.
But it's like that thing where I was like, this is giving me what I'm asking for. Why am I worried? Or like, what's not connecting with me, rather? And so I think for the first part of the movie, it like wasn't leaning into the weirdness it has established. Because like the opening stuff with the two of them and their mom, it was just sort of like this weird sitcom-y thing.
Yeah.
And once Octavia Spencer shows up, and thankfully she is in the movie for more than just that scene.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
And she easily was the best.
Was smart.
Yeah. Her performance was very strong, and it like came through the character, and the animation was so good at that point. And like, because both her and the mom are like in the movie, like more than I was anticipating. Like they're not along on the quest, but they're like on their own separate quest. And it's like, because she's a manticore, which I loved that. Manticores are male. That's not like I don't think there are female manticores, but whatever. And they did it right. The only thing I didn't notice was they have like 100 teeth, and I couldn't see that.
Oh.
Like they had like 3 rows of teeth, but
sure.
There was a part of me where I was like, she has a scorpion tail, and sure enough, it came up in the movie.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Well, because for a minute I thought she actually killed that woman, and it's like, I could have dealt with a PG-13 Pixar movie,
sure,
with a little bit more edge, but yeah. So kind of from that point on, I was into it. Chris Pratt was getting on my nerves a lot in the beginning. I warmed up to it, and I don't know if it's because he was so obviously Chris Pratt, and also Chris Pratt isn't my favorite at this moment.
Yeah. I was feeling the same.
Well, and also the character is a lot. So it's like,
he is a lot, yeah.
There's a part of me where I'm like, I'm not sure what is rubbing me the wrong way, but something is. And it like earned itself. It got there. There were some really good bits, and some of the magic was fun. Like when they could put on the illusion that they were what was the cop's name? Colt
Branka.
Colt Branka. Okay. So when they were
hilarious, so stupid funny, because he's a centaur. Mm-hmm. That's an amazing name for a centaur cop.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so they could only keep up the illusion if they tell the truth.
Yeah, he couldn't lie.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, that was very funny and inventive. And I actually really liked the whole stretch of the movie where Chris Pratt, the older brother, was tiny.
Oh my God, hilarious.
And the animation of him getting bigger.
That's what Will said was his favorite part, too. I want to shout out because there's a couple of mirrored scenes where, like, Ian is trying to learn how to drive at school, like a student driver, and he can't get on the freeway because he can't merge. He's scared to merge. And so they like pull off the freeway. And then later, because Barley is little, he has to be the one to drive.
Ian.
And Ian has to be the one to drive. And so he just is like, I can't do it. I can't. We're to the freeway. I'm not ready. And like Barley in his little, it basically was like the little shoulder angel and devil Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove. He was like, you're never ready, merge. And it was so stupid hilarious. I almost lost my mind at that point because I laughed so hard. That part was probably my favorite line delivery of the whole thing.
Well, but I would admit, like, when he was getting bigger, like, because he had one big arm.
That was Will's favorite
and
part,
then the
too.
giant head, but the rest of him was still tiny. And, like, there was some phenomenal animation in this, which, again, I kind of wanted more of. And it's like, I know that we can't have a picture movie that's like a coffee table book, but I really, especially with it giving me the fantasy, like there's the scene where they're in the forest of beanstalks and stuff. And I'm like, I just wanted more of that.
Yes, I agree with you. Some of it was really so beautiful, but then it like so much of it was like weirdly industrial. And I was like, you are giving off like backward vibes right now.
Well, like I stand by it was kind of two movies in that regard.
Yeah.
What was the joke, the Shire Burger? And it was like, now serving second breakfast.
Oh yeah, that was hilarious. I also liked that it was just called New Mushroom Town or New Shroomton or something like that. It was really silly.
So I have to ask you, because I saw some scuttlebutt online, but the feral unicorns, was that hilarious or terrifying?
I mean, both a little. So the ones eating out of the garbage I found mostly hilarious. The ones in the cave were also scary.
It was so weird.
It was super weird. But like, that's the stuff where I think I'm on your team, where I wish they'd leaned into that stuff a little bit more. Like why did we not know more about the feral unicorns kind of a thing? I just wish that they had because that's a fantasy element that's interesting. Like, are there any non-feral unicorns somewhere? You know,
it's like the pigeons in Futurama.
Yeah,
it's like in the future, pigeons are rats or owls rather. I'm sorry, owls. Yeah. So yeah, I mentioned the Guinevere the Van, her Valkyrie scene. That was so funny. I don't know how to explain. Like, I literally can't explain why I thought that was so funny. But she, like, has to sacrifice herself so that they can get away from the cops. And he, like, drives the van into the cliff.
Yeah.
And she was, like, crying. Like, the van was, like, crying. And the music, and it wasn't Ride of the Valkyries, but it was one of those, like, epic accompaniments. I'm, like, kind of wanting you to jump in and save me, but I don't know that you would know how to explain it better.
No, it was a very sort of, like, this is our last stand kind of moment. And it's like when the general has to sacrifice himself for his men. And
it was just like a crappy van, though.
Yeah, it's like a pretty crappy van with like a unicorn mural on the side.
Pretty good climax.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed the dragon. That was a very clever dragon. And I clocked the mural on the school of the dragon's face. I was like, that's a very deliberate shot of that dragon mural, and I didn't predict that it was going to end up being the face of the dragon later. Very, very interesting, very funny. They get the assist from their mom and Octavia Spencer in that scene.
The mom is voiced by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, by the way, yeah.
And there was a part of me watching the movie where I was like, why do you care this much? Like, I was like, why is it so... Because Ian never met the father. The father died of an illness in between. So the older brother, what was his name?
Barley
had like 3 memories of the father, and Ian didn't have any. So there comes a point where Ian realizes that this like quest for their dad was more for Barley. It's more for his brother than it was for him. And so he ends up sacrificing his chance for the brother to get the chance to spend time with the dad. And so
to say goodbye, because he didn't say goodbye when he was sick.
Because he was too scared when he was a child. And so when I said, I was like, we kind of see the dad. Because that was another thing where I was like, how are they going to bring this dad back? I was like, because the mom has a boyfriend now. And
he was still, regardless, he was only back for 24 hours. Like,
yeah, but I was like, I thought the movie was going to find a way around that with, with Ian having magic and stuff. I was kind of like, how are they going to move forward with this? Because it felt, I knew we were going to be rushing to the sunset, and then that ended up feeling cruel. I was like, so they're going to get it for like seconds, and then he's going to be gone again. And that's not going to feel worth it. And the way they got around that was by Ian realizing that he was going to prioritize Barley's emotional experience. And because Ian the whole time was like, I never had a dad. And then he was like, well, I mean, he didn't have a traditional father, but he had a bigger brother who filled that role, which is something that we love, the notion of found family and also non-traditional family. Because I mean, I'm
like a non-traditional family unit kind of thing.
I was reading, I didn't finish it, but I was reading this like extensive essay about how the nuclear family is actually extremely damaging.
It's not great. It's not good for anybody.
It's like breaking how the world works. And so that was really nice. And that was really interesting in a way that I almost wish, I definitely didn't want them shining a brighter light on it, but I almost wish the movie touched on it a little bit sooner or more.
Yeah, because it didn't really, like, by the time it got to that point, it was so late in the game that I was like, oh, this is what they're doing? Like, I wish I had known this was what they were doing a little sooner. And it would just like, it was very late by the time that Ian was like, no, you should be the one, to meet dad or to say goodbye to dad, because I never even met him. And I was like, literally the entire movie has been about how all you want to do is meet your dad. And I was like, all of a sudden you're like, Barley's my dad. And I'm just like, I mean, I guess, but I feel like there's something else going on now.
But that part of it did work for me. I really liked the brother part of it, because it's like we talked about how Brave was very sort of specifically about like a mother and daughter relationship, and Frozen is about sisters. And so this was very much about like two brothers. And, I am in a place where, I'm going through a time with my brother. My brother's having a bit of a hard time right now. We happen to have like a heart-to-heart conversation last night. So it was like parts of this were really kind of like tinging. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, even, I have no siblings and definitely not a brother, but parts of this were pinging my dead mom part,
you
too.
mentioned that.
Like,
did you have anything specifically that you were going to say about that, or?
I mean, it just made me miss her, because there were like so many moments, especially, the parts where Ian was like, I just want to say hello. Like, I just want to say hello to my dad. And then especially the part when they were floating down the river on the cheese puff. And Barley is talking about seeing the dad in the hospital with all the tubes and everything. And I was like, well, fuck me. That is like legit. And it was like a real bummer. And yeah, it made me a little bit sad. I don't want to end on that bummer note, though. So, like, think of something else funny that was in the movie.
It wasn't a bummer note. It was a nice note. I did like it. I really did. It's not my favorite. I think it's a medium Pixar movie.
Yeah, I agree. It's better than Cars.
I would absolutely watch another one, especially considering, because and again, that's part of my thing is I'm like, let's keep going though. You've done all this groundwork with this really awesome world that I want to explore, because there was something about the suburban element of it mixed in with the fantasy that was so exciting.
Like the unicorns eating trash like raccoons. That's hilarious. That's just like truly hilarious.
Like I said earlier, I was like, I don't have a ton to say. This is definitely a shorter episode.
Yeah.
But it was good. There was things I liked, and I think you should see it too, especially if you like any of the things involved.
Like a lot of Pixar movies, this is a good way to introduce your child to deeper themes. Loss and like realizing that, the thing you needed just came to you in a different package. Appreciating your mother for crying out loud, like kind of things like that, because like they kind of take their mom for granted, like 90% of the movie.
I mentioned it in the theater, but I was like, she was giving me such huge Linda Holmes vibes. And I mean,
she looked a little like her. She had kind of the same haircut and her glasses were the same shape.
But it's like, that's also how I would imagine Linda Holmes being on an adventure. And so I had barely gotten the sentence out and you were like, oh my God, you're right. It's all I can see now.
100%.
And you were like, I wish I could like tag her without it being like offensive or patronizing or
yeah, I don't know. Some people are really strange about things like that, and I wish I knew.
You're older, therefore you're a mom, you know. But
no, it's not even that. It just is like sort of like her whole vibe and her like mannerisms and stuff. I just was like, that feels like something Linda Holmes would do.
Mm-hmm. And I mean that, like, I was like, that's the role I feel like she would play in a Quest movie.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
And I mean, she gets the sword in the dragon for a good, like, 10 minutes, so...
Yeah, she's a warrior.
Yeah, I dug it. I love... okay, I thought of two things. I love the cop's hair at the end.
Oh, at the end, yeah.
The centaur cop, he takes his hat
Colt
off, and
Branka.
he's got, like, a mane of hair. And then also, we actually didn't mention Lena Waithe. It's like, she's the Cyclops cop.
And the other one is Ali Wong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who's a lesbian. And she mentioned her girlfriend's daughter and stuff. Mixed bag. Very mixed bag. It's nice. I want to celebrate these moments when they come.
Yeah.
However, I mean, the barest of minimums.
She's also not like a visibly female Cyclops.
Yeah, the design, I would have picked a different design. Just
like, it's a perfectly Lena Waithe Cyclops cop, but if you're trying to actually do that,
it was ugly. Is what I'm saying.
Oh no, I don't. I mean, it was a Cyclops. Of course, it looks weird, but I just like Lena Waithe is very gender nonconforming in a way that
yeah,
that was like fine. But if you're trying to make that message, we please, for the love of God, make that message? Mm-hmm. And like, let's not keep it in such a weird nebulous zone.
And I don't know why we're like talking about it like it's exciting or controversial, because I mean, the line's going to be dubbed in foreign markets. So it's like there's nothing of value was risked or lost. And so it is sort of like, cool. I'm glad that, you know, Disney animated films have joined 1997, but cool.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
Bye.
All right. Well, we mostly liked Onward. I mean, I think it's definitely good for kids, and if you're, you know, a diehard Pixar person, absolutely go see it.
Or a fantasy person, if you just like
a fantasy person,
weird fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons, all that shit.
Yeah. So go see it. Let us know what you think. You can follow us on Twitter @SoI'mWatching, Instagram @SoI'mWatchingThisShow. We are also, we have a website. I keep doing that because I'm not used yet to not talking about Facebook and Tumblr.
You need to write a script, or we need to just film record a standard.
I haven't done it for 2 years. I'm not going to start now.
Yeah, I think you should, though, because we're 2 years in.
Okay. We have a website. SoI'mWatching.com. It links out to everything, including Patreon and the YouTube. And other than that, you can rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen. And that's it for us.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.